Hello, my name's Gia, and I've been a celebrity makeup artist for the last 20 years. I'm also the founder of a sweat-friendly cosmetics brand, Skin in Motion, and I am fascinated by the politics of beauty and the incredible power of makeup. My guest today is a content creator and one we look to for all things beauty and fitness. Her brand, Clean Eating Alice, set the trend in the 2010s, and it's her work with YSL Beauty and Women's Aid that has brought her here today as she opens up the conversation that abuse is not love. So please welcome Alice Living.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming in, and I've been so interested to go to deep dive into all sorts of different topics. I don't almost know where to start. We had a really good chat earlier and I was like, oh, we need to talk about that and we need to talk about that. So there's so much. But first of all, the first question, what makeup are you wearing today?
Oh gosh. So today my fail-safe foundation is the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk, and I've probably used it for about 10 years.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And I think as someone who has reddy undertones in my skin and some redness, I find if I'm going to do something like this, it just evens out my skin tone and always gives me that kind of healthy coverage that I love.
It's a beautiful glow. It looks
yeah.
really fresh. And if people aren't watching this, when you arrived today, you just had this lovely freshy glow.
Aw.
That's not too, it doesn't look oily or that sort of shiny, bad shiny. It's good glow.
Yeah, no. Well, coming from like the background of using Dream Matte Mousse and smearing that on my face as a teenager, we've upgraded from there.
Yeah. So Dream Matte Mousse. And what else? What other products have you got on?
I love a lot of Hourglass, I have to be honest. I know it's a bit more on the expensive side of things, but I love their concealer. So I've got the concealer, I've used their blusher, brows. I actually had my brows done yesterday with my favourite brow artist. She's called Sophia Brows on Instagram.
Beautiful.
She's so good. So they didn't need much. And then what else have I... And my Laura Mercier.
You've got a new...
Yes, we were talking about
it.
So I was told by the makeup artist in Space NK, or the assistant in Space NK, that apparently for blue eyes, pinky burgundy tones are really good, and I've got blue eyes, so I was like, great, what should I get? And she recommended this Laura Mercier kind of crayon-y thing. I mean, it's the easiest thing I've ever used on my eyes because you literally just draw it across, easy peasy, and it's a burgundy colour, and it's the first time that I'm using it today.
It's kind of cool.
I know,
fascinating, because I think there's that harmonising of colours that matches your skin tone, your eyes. It's like, you know, it's like having your colours done, which has become such a thing. Yeah. But also it's sort of following that up into your makeup because you're wearing this burgundy, which you've kind of sort of seen as that pops your blue eyes. And actually, you've kind of carried this through to your whole palette. And I think it just looks so lovely, rather than just us often always being in black. It's like, what colours can really bring my features alive? And that Laura Mercier little sweep on the eyelid just pops. It looks gorgeous.
I would love to get my colours done. I know it's such a hot thing at the moment. And I think I definitely go for more like pinky. I always describe myself as being like a real girly girl. Like I love these like pinky burgundy colours and like nice dresses and stuff. But I don't actually know what colours suit me. So like even you as a makeup artist, you were saying earlier how you can look at someone's face and know what will work with their skin tone, what lip to do, whereas I just have done the same makeup for the last however many years. So using a new product is very brave of me because normally I just do the same thing every day. But I've tried to bring that colour into my...
Well, I like it. We'll have to sort of tag what the product is. But Bobbi Brown does great ones as well, those little crayons. Yeah. Because they're just so easy. And it's just life, we're too busy, we haven't got time. You want something you just sweep on and you're like, I'm done. And it stays and I love it. So
exactly, yeah.
It looks gorgeous. So going back in time, so when you were young, you grew up, you were born in Gerrards Cross. Yes. And you did lots of performing arts, some dancing, all sorts of stuff. What did beauty look like then? Who did you look to on the telly or posters of people that you might have had on your wall that you looked to you were like, they're gorgeous?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved beauty. This was the start of like the YouTube era, don't forget. So when I was growing up, so probably in sort of, I would say the early like 2010s maybe, YouTube was really taking off in a big way with a lot of makeup artists or even just makeup, you know, fanatics who would post these videos of how you need to do your makeup. And I would spend hours in my bedroom working through these videos, seeing how they do it. seeing what products they were using. I mean, I had an incredibly limited budget, so I was never doing that much. But yeah, it was your Dream Matte Mousse, it was your loads of bronzer, never any blusher, like face looking all one colour, completely pale lips, never using a lip colour in my life. Like, honestly, my mum would be so frustrated with me because she'd say, just try a little bit of something on your lips. And I would honestly put foundation on my lips, and that was the look that we would go for.
You just get obsessed with one look and you're like, that is the look I have to go for.
I know.
Who did you watch? Who were the people that you liked to watch?
I can't remember what I liked. The Pixie Woo girls.
Yeah.
I really liked them, and I remember, is it Sam Chapman?
Yes.
And her sister?
Can't remember, but they
they were
back in the day, the early ones.
I definitely remember watching them. But then there was a girl in America, and I can't even remember her name now, who taught me about how to apply bronzer, doing it in like a three motion on your face. And I remember being like, wow, I've really learned something today. So yeah, that was what I remember kind of taking on board. So it was less that I looked to kind of celebrities and people like that. It was more that this was the birth of social media, and I guess what went on to be my entire career as well. So it's quite interesting. But really getting absorbed into that world and looking to more normal, quote unquote, normal people for their makeup tips, rather than looking to like a celebrity or a magazine to know how to apply makeup.
Well, I love that, because it's sort of like you're looking to how do I look good, rather than looking at someone else and go, I want to look like that, which I think for young girls, having that self-love, it's a tough place to get to. And like none of us sort of manage to win on it all the time, and we go up and down and good days and bad days. But I think if you can be giving that message to younger girls, it's about be content with yourself. I asked my niece the other day, who's 17, who would you like to look like? And she said me. And I was like, yes, that's the right answer. And it is. It's trying to feel good in your own skin.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, it's really hard. I grew up at a time where social media wasn't as big as it is now. And yes, the media was still complex and difficult and had its issues in different ways. But I guess the world that we live in now, I think girls are just exposed to so much when it comes to information, what they should be doing, wearing, you know. And, you know, even if you just think about it, when I was at school, so I'm 32, I was born in 1993, for those listening, to help work out where I'm kind of talking about in terms of time frame. When I was at school, social media wasn't really a thing yet. So when it came to kind of my influence of how I dressed and who I wanted to be like, I was very much surrounded by the girls that were around me, but that circle was quite small. And when I left school and I came home and I was at home, I was able to mostly escape from that world and not feel too influenced by it. Nowadays, you know, there's no escape.
No.
Whether you're at school, at home, whatever you're doing, your whole world is at your fingertips. And the power of that influence and what it can do to you, self-esteem wise, confidence wise, is so dramatic that you're absolutely right. It makes such a big difference to how girls feel about themselves. And I think that it can be positive in some ways. I don't think social media is necessarily this one homogenous bad thing. So many people find their communities there, their, you know, places where they feel they belong. They get wonderful inspiration from it, as you and I, I'm sure, do. But yeah, there are those pockets of complexity that can make it really difficult for girls to get through without feeling as though they constantly have to be changing themselves.
What I think very interesting for your journey, you turned something from a negative that happened to you in your late teens, which was a sort of in relationship abuse, and you've utilized since then the power of social media to turn it into a real positive. But talk me through what happened when you were a late teen.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very difficult time, and I think that when you think about and definitely my experience of domestic abuse, at the time I didn't realize that's what it was. I was with a partner who was my first proper boyfriend. I was only 16, and so when he became I know,
so
exactly.
young.
And when he became physically violent, it's not that I didn't know it was wrong. I definitely did, but I think that I just didn't recognize that there was such a clear pattern that had led me to that point. And then I guess the difficult thing with domestic abuse is that oftentimes when it gets to the point where it becomes very physical and you are in fear of many things, your safety, sometimes your life, it's too late to be able to get out because you're terrified of that person. And so it makes it a really difficult situation to try and extricate yourself from. So
But you're now educating women through YSL Beauty and Women's Aid. You are now helping women, particularly younger women, who are vulnerable, who probably haven't evolved from a sort of confidence point of view. Talk to me about what you've been doing with YSL Beauty.
Yeah, and look, that's a big part of it. I got involved with YSL Beauty through their UK NGO, who's Women's Aid. I've worked with Women's Aid for many years, and really when I started to heal from my own experience and recognise that there was this massive swathe of girls who weren't getting, I think, the education that they needed on what constitutes a healthy relationship, which was 16-year-old girls that are going through their first relationships, that younger kind of generation, because most people's perception of domestic abuse is that this only happens to married couples, or this only happens to people who are older. So I started working with Women's Aid, and then through them, connected with YSL, who are on this incredible mission to really, and look how amazing, they're at the forefront of being able to speak to a whole generation of women, like, not just young women, but all generations of women, to be able to give them some information and dispel a lot of myths when it comes to what abuse looks like, how it can manifest, and how to protect themselves.
And
I
an
just
amazing
think,
video
yeah,
that they've got on YouTube, which I thought was so clever, called "Abuse Is Not Love," or it's about abuse is not love. And you think it's going to be a lovely YSL sort of, this couple in Paris, and it's so clever. Tell me what that's about, because I thought that was particularly interesting, and it's like the forefront of the campaign.
well, I think the point with that video was that, again, it's challenging those perceptions of what abuse is. It's quite subversive in a way, in that, like, yeah, you're right, you're kind of lulled into this false sense of thinking it's going to be this lovely thing. And that's often how abuse manifests. You start off with someone who showers you with love, makes you feel amazing. I always use the phrase, but it's very true. If your abuser was how they were at the end, at the start, you'd never be in a relationship with them. But there's a kind of phase where they draw you in and build your trust, and then by the time it starts to turn sour, you're kind of trapped. And I think that video is brilliant at showcasing that. And I think it is. It's getting people to challenge their understanding of what abuse is, to be able to recognize it for themselves, recognize it for those around them as well, and really have an awareness as to, what does abuse mean, and how can I look out for it in everyday situations, and be able to know how to challenge it or to pick it up if it's happening to myself.
Because it's so subtle. And I think so many women listening or watching this would be like, yes, I kind of think did I or didn't I get abuse in a relationship? And it's not like someone hits you, it's a literal thing. It's the build up, it's the subtle things. Where can women go to kind of explore this a bit more? Does YSL have a place that people can go and learn a bit, or just, see, to get more education?
I mean, you can go onto the YSL Beauty website, and then also through their, like I said, UK-based NGO, who is Women's Aid. There's a load of information that you can get there. I'd say the thing that I'd really get people to be conscious of, unless they're in danger themselves, in which case, obviously, please do go to the police. It's to really start to be aware of the different ways in which it can manifest. And you're absolutely right. And I think it's such a great point to make, is that it isn't always physical. And often those first signs aren't the physical. That's often when it gets, really bad. That it can start very surreptitiously with little things that you don't necessarily, it's just having your confidence questioned and chipped away at. And slowly over time, when that gets chipped away at, and then you start to question your own sanity and your own kind of ability to judge a situation, that's when it starts to then tip over into, really being quite a dangerous situation. So I guess my ambition, YSL's ambition, is to really, can we catch it earlier? Can we get more women to be able to remove themselves from, and, get help from those situations early on, so they don't become yet another statistic, sadly, of women who are killed by a partner, women who are physically assaulted by a partner,
or emotionally damaged. I know I've been in a relationship quite a few years ago, and it's absolutely you don't realize it's happening, and it's so clever. And then the thing that resonates with me is, like, you don't realize, you start questioning your own sanity and going, this, there's something wrong, but they've done such a good job that you start thinking it's you. And that's the sort of what they tend to do. And whether then they can go on to physically hurt you or whatever, you suddenly start justifying what they're doing because you're like, oh, it must be me, or I'm not quite doing something right. And it's just such a good message. I'm so glad that you and YSL are doing this. And it's lovely. It's sort of through the lens of beauty as well, which obviously I absolutely love. But my next question I think I have for you is, after this happened to you, how did that affect your confidence and how your perception of you, how did that journey then happen? How
Yeah.
did you feel going forward?
It was definitely a rebuilding. I don't think I realised at the time how much it affected me either. I was like, and this is what I find hard to get my head around, is I was such a confident, like, young girl. So I really didn't ever expect something like this to happen to me. I mean, I was full of confidence, full of ambition. And so this really, like, wiped the floor with me, and I just was completely decimated by it. But I don't think I realised, because as soon as it happened, I walked out that courtroom after the verdict was given, and I just was like, right, draw a line, move on, compartmentalise, and on I go, and just carried on with my life as if nothing had happened. And it was only really when I started to have sort of very physical symptoms of anxiety and sort of panic attacks, and that sort of stuff started to creep in, that I was like, what's going on here? Like, something's happening. And then started to have flashbacks of things that would happen that I'd almost like trained my brain to forget. So I just completely blacked out and then would remember. And I think then I decided, no, I really need to get some help. And definitely, like, my physical rebuilding was part of that journey. So when I look back now,
you started your social media
exactly,
to start talking. So how did that join up? Because you in about, is it 2010, 2015?
around then, yeah.
You started doing the social media, and was that like a sort of cathartic therapy for you in some ways, or was it a way for you to disguise what you were feeling, do you think?
I think now that I've had years of therapy and I can work out what was really going on there, I genuinely think that it was that I was desperate for some kind of validation and love from somewhere else that I didn't get from my relationship. And because my confidence was so low, I turned to the internet and suddenly had all these people telling me how wonderful I was. And I just grabbed onto it with both hands and was like, oh my God, this is the, like, serotonin I've been needing, and, like, give me more of
How
it.
many likes have I got? How many views? It's like a kind of a hit.
It became really addictive. And I think now that I'm able to be a lot more kind of reflective on that time, I can realise that not that that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I think most of us go to social media in some capacity for validation and connection and social acceptance and whatever. But I think that was where it came from. But in some ways, I also accredit it with healing me. It did heal a part of me. Like, look at the life that I have now and everything that I've gone on to be able to do, and the people that I've been able to help with the work that I've done. I would never have had any of these opportunities. So as much as I can say, oh, wasn't it complex, the reasons why I got into it, like, is anything ever perfect in life?
And it is taking that negative and turning it into a positive. And I think that's what really comes across with all your social media. And I guess also the fitness side, because you very much got into sort of the wellness area and into fitness, that can really help your mental state as well, to feel really good about yourself, all the serotonin, all the sort of good hormones that get released when you're exercising. Do you think that played a part in your healing?
Yeah, I mean, hugely so. I really believe that exercise is one of the most fundamental, like, powerful things that we can do for our mind and our body. And I really, I believe that it should be a key pillar of all of our lives because of that, because I've experienced how it helped me to overcome so much mentally, physically. And yes, okay, I've had to relearn my relationship with exercise. I think, as with anything in life, you can have too much of a good thing. And when something feels like it's giving you a lot, you can almost abuse it in that sense. So I definitely went through a stage of doing too much exercise because I was like, oh, this is really helping me. I just want more and more and more and more. And unfortunately, my body was like, no, this is too much.
There's a control, isn't there? I think.
Of course.
And I've been having a few issues in life, and I've turned to exercise, and it does make me feel amazing. But I think you then get the anxiety if I haven't worked out and now my back's hurting and I've got this anxiety of not exercising because I've paid for this thing and it's about to run out, and it has made me feel amazing. But it's like, okay, slow down. why am I doing this? What's it making me feel? And looking in the mirror every day and going, is it making my thighs, menopause, when your body starts changing and you're like, I want to get it back to how I was when I was in my 20s or whatever. And it is that really, I want to explore more. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And I want to keep that feel good factor, but as long as it's a healthy approach to it.
I think so. I think, look, everyone's approach to exercise will be different. There's no one size fits all, as I'm sure you know, when it comes to anything in life. We are all incredibly different. And that means that there's no formula that I can give you here that's like, this is the best way to exercise. I wish there was. But what I do know is that there are some key fundamental things that I would ensure everyone kind of tries to adhere to. And that is that exercise is amazing. I think it's, again, as I've said, super powerful. But also it has to be approached with respect and with understanding that rest is also as powerful as the exercise itself and needs to be given that same respect. So how much we rest will depend on person to person, depending on their age, their training level, their ability, and so many other things. But it does matter and it is important, and it's a big part of the conversation. How we fuel our training matters. So you can't just go through life exercising and not expecting to have to work out that energy balance of how much I'm putting in and how much I'm expending, and kind of having a basic understanding of that. And then also I would say, like, whilst I can't give specifics, absolutely what I would believe in more than anything is that there has to be some fundamental kind of foundation of strength in there. We know the benefits of muscle building and muscle maintenance throughout our lives. There is so much data that suggests how beneficial it is to retain muscle as we age, the importance of that for not just our kind of, physical health, but also our longevity. And so I think that as much as I think choosing a form of exercise that you enjoy is crucial, I would really try and get, especially women, to try and engage in some form of strength training throughout their lifetime, just so that we can really harness. And it doesn't have to be loads. I think that's the thing that people often have the mistake with when it comes to exercise. They think that they need to be doing 5 sessions a week in order to see the benefits. When it comes to the data, we're seeing benefits from 1-2 sessions a week of strength training. It does.
That's what I'm doing. Strength training, and it does make my body feels amazing. It's just making sure that I probably have the rest because my back is hurting. But I think what's also really interesting, and I think you and I are both passionate about this, is lots of women put off exercise for a lot of reasons, including their appearance, and how we combat that and get women moving. Because I know you talk about this a lot, but what are the things you can say to women out there who are like, I don't feel confident about myself? We're here about beauty, and it is a thing when people go to exercise. It's such a popular thing now. People go and date, go on first dates and all sorts of stuff to gyms. How would you help women who are sort of like, oh, I want to exercise, but my appearance is challenging me?
Yeah, and I think it's like a big part of the conversation, because even I've had it on a day where I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling awful. I really don't want to go to the gym. I think that it plays a big part in our motivation and our consistency and adherence to exercise. So yeah, I would say, first and foremost, you've got to feel comfortable. So when it comes down to what you're wearing, there's no right or wrong in the gym, except for maybe going in a bikini.
Like, or naked.
Yeah, wear what you feel comfortable in and that feels supportive for you. You don't have to have the latest gym gear. You can wear your dad's old t-shirt. You can wear, whatever. The only thing that I'm fairly specific about is footwear. Just because from a safety perspective, if you're strength training or if you're in a gym, having a flat-soled shoe is preferable. It's not absolutely fundamental, but I would always try and get people.
Heels. When you say flat soles, I'm like, well, can you get trainers that haven't
got... look, so running trainers, for example, will have a lot of cushioning at the bottom of the shoe, and that means that when you're doing exercises where you're wanting to be very stable and grounded into the floor, they're not necessarily ideal for that. So everyone tends to go for like more of a running shoe, but they would be my biggest pet hate when it comes to then trying to translate that into strength training, just because they don't give you the stability that you need.
Because when you're pushing through your heel, for example, you want to make sure that
you're really feeling that contact. Exactly. So running shoes, great for running and walking, but for the gym, something like a Nike Metcon, just to give one brand, but there are many, where they have a really flat sole that's nice and stable, would be my only thing that I would stipulate. And then moving kind of more aesthetically, I think, for me, for example, I'm someone who wears wake up to the gym every time I go. It's almost like it's just part of me. I don't feel I do it for anyone else except for me. But I know that when I show up to the gym and I just feel good, that makes a difference to my session. And I don't care what anyone thinks around that. I don't care if they think I'm vain. I don't care if they think I'm anything other than just, doing something that, as with all things in life, we choose the things we do that make us feel good, whether there's, a rhyme or reason to it or not. And so for me, it's like a little bit of concealer, it's a little bit of bronzer, it's a bit of blusher, maybe a tiny bit of mascara. It's not, a full face of makeup. Although, I've seen it all at the gym and I just don't care, whatever makes you get there. And I think my take on it is I'd way rather that someone exercise and feel good as a result of it than be shamed into not going or feeling that they don't fit because they don't look the part. There's no rules in that sense. There's a lot of judgment, and I just really don't like that because I think it hampers the cause of trying to get more people to move their bodies. So
you and I
I know
we are both
aligned.
so aligned on this story because I set up my brand.
Yeah.
Skin in Motion, it's all designed to get women exercising because I saw how many people were exercising. I saw the stats about how many women are put off exercise by their appearance.
Exactly.
And yes, it can be clothes and weight and all sorts of stuff, but also makeup, I know, and I see when I do people's makeup, the confidence it gives them. But I was also seeing products that were clogging your pores, mascara that was running. When people finish exercising, sweat's amazing, but just get rid of it from your face, not too long after you've exercised, because otherwise it'll give you sort of spots, etc. So that's why I set up my brand, and it's all about, guys, get out there and move. And if it means that you're wearing blue Go Faster eyeliner and it gets you in the mood for going exercising, get out there and do it. And I think that's so important. And I love the fact that you're in the same mindset as me.
Yeah. And again, how amazing that now we live in a world where there are products literally tailored to, makeup when we exercise, because we're just realizing that for some women, that's just what they want to do. And so let's cater to that. Let's make it, a really great thing that they can have in their gym bag that they pop on to make them feel good. And let's not make a massive deal about it. Whatever women want to do is what makes them happy and what makes them adhere to exercise long term. And look, that's what we want, right? So I know I'm completely on the same page.
No, it's amazing. And what makeup, what mascara do you use? What concealer would you use when you're exercising?
Again, I'm a big fan of, I find the Hourglass just stays in place for me, so I'm a big fan of that.
Brand.
Yeah, it really is. And again, I'm so boring with trying new things, so if I just find something that works, I'm like, right, I'll stick with that.
But now that I'm very excited because I didn't know about this, and I've just found out that you might be doing a little bit less exercise in the coming months.
Yeah.
Tell me, there's certain news that you've got.
I know. Yes, I am due to have a baby in October. God, I always got my due date wrong then. I am. Yes, thank you so much. So I am 5 months pregnant, which means that my whole approach to exercise. Do you know what? It's really interesting actually. It's been a big learning curve for me because, yes, my approach to exercise has changed, but not as much as I thought it would. And it's actually something that I'm really interested in right now, is that I think that, for example, I went to my grandparents' house. I'm so blessed. I have two grandparents who are still alive. They're 93 and 88, and they're amazing. And I was carrying into their house, they know I'm pregnant and they have done for a while. I was carrying into their house a bag of stuff that I was bringing over to them. And instantly my grandfather was like, oh, don't carry that, don't carry that. And I was like, I'm not dying.
Yeah.
I'm pregnant. And actually, what am I going to do when I have to lift a baby, lift a carry seat, lift this, lift that, be able to bend down and get this?
Exercise for
our bodies,
9 months.
Yeah.
How are you going to hurt yourself more?
Exactly. And I basically think that our mindsets, and look, I understand it, but I think we become incredibly protective of ourselves when we're pregnant at a time when actually keeping our bodies strong is almost the most fundamental thing that you can do. So yes, there are considerations. I am coming into this pregnancy as someone who is very conditioned and well trained. So I have been able to carry on training at a fairly high level because my body's used to it. I would not recommend that to someone who's a complete newbie when it comes to exercise. So absolutely, again, as I've said across this conversation, there's not a one size fits all. However, even small amounts of strength training for beginners is going to be beneficial. Basic things as well that I've learned, like you know, there used to be this thing where it was like, no core work. I go to a boxing class each week and this instructor, which by the way, he's amazing. But as soon as I told him I was pregnant, he said, don't do any core work. Well, that's not the current recommendations and guidelines, is that we understand that actually keeping our core strong is so helpful for pregnancy, and being able to rotate and flex and extend can be really beneficial. Again, there will be limitations and there will be people for whom their healthcare provider might suggest that that's not right.
And I guess you'll be covering a lot of this in your social media.
Exactly.
So people can come and see what you're recommending. Because I think it'll be fascinating to, you know, because women from hundreds and thousands of years had babies and had to carry on their normal life. And but you know, I think we have good science that understands what you should and what, you know, the dangers.
But I understand it.
But at the same time, it's like within that sort of bracket of freedom, keeping as we love, keep moving, because I think that helps, you know, from a mental point of view, strengthen your body, ready for post-birth. So I think that's absolutely fascinating. I'm dying to see how, you know, as you sort of evolve, and you do have a beautiful, just healthy, fresh, sparkly glow. And there is something about pregnancy. I came to collect you in reception today, and I was like, wow, you just had this lovely, vibrant glow about you.
Thank you.
Can you disclose some of your favourite makeup products that you absolutely can't live without?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I will definitely, I've always been a fan of the Touche Éclat. I think it's one of
YSL.
Of course. And I think that I remember stealing my mum's when I was young. Like, it was one of those products that you just knew was like the expensive product that my mum had in her makeup bag that I'd always try and nick from her makeup bag. But it's one of those heritage products that you just know works. And you're a makeup artist, I'm sure you know this, but it's a product that people have loved for years and years. And it's almost like a staple of my routine.
OG.
And basically, I think I'll be using a lot of that.
And any other, what about skincare? What's your favourite skincare products that you love to use?
So I am big on La Roche-Posay. I
love that brand.
Can I just say, they are amazing. And I spent years struggling with my skin. I spent years thinking that I needed all of these things to strip my skin and to help with my acne. And what I realized is my skincare routine now is so basic. I use a cleanser, a moisturizer, and an SPF, and all of it is La Roche-Posay. And my skin has never been better. And I just think there's something about choosing something that is so, for my skin,
so clever, and it's so affordable. You can buy it in Boots. Loads of dermatologists recommend the La Roche-Posay and Thelios SPF, and it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Doesn't make your skin look oily. Doesn't give you that horrible sort of white sheen. I mean, the technology now with SPF is phenomenal, and I'm there with you on the La Roche-Posay. It's amazing. But Alice, thank you so much for coming on. I've loved talking, and congratulations on the pregnancy. It's a beautiful. I hope everyone sort of watches your journey as you evolve. A massive thank you to Alice Living and YSL Beauty for opening up the conversation on abuse is not love. If you're affected by what you've heard today and need more support, please contact www.womensaid.org.uk. That's it for True Reflections this week. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. You can find me across your social media by searching at True Reflections Podcast. You can also explore my Skin Emotion cosmetics range to help boost your confidence at skin.in.motion on your social media channels. I'll be back next week with another celebrity to talk through their beauty experiences, their favourite products, and delve deeper into how the ideals of beauty shapes not just our physical appearance, but also the core of our identities. Until then, have a lovely week.